It's good. Oh, that's rather nice.
Oh.
Oh.
This looks promising. Nice paper-covered board, stamped with a wreath, and in here the character, Jew. Have you ever seen that?
Yes, I've seen it on there, but
Do you know what it means?
No.
It means long life.
Oh, yes.
And inside, just what one would expect to find, page after page of Japanese prints. All printed in colours from wood blocks. Do you know how they're done?
Yes, each colour is put on separately.
That's right, exactly, and then printed in one go.
That's right.
And they didn't use a printing press. That's the difference between Western technology and Japan, is that they placed the paper on the carved wooden block and then rubbed it. And quite often, I don't know if we can see it anywhere on any of these, you can actually see lines, indeed you can on here, where they've scrubbled it round a bit and the line has come through. Now that's, and you get it again in the sky, and that adds texture and excitement to it. These started being made in the 17th century in numbers, and they were the equivalent of comics of the time. Largely the populace couldn't read, which is why you don't get a lot of text to it. And they illustrate scenes from the theatre, from drama, and later on in the 19th century you even get things like the Americans and English who were resident in Japan. The colours are quite extraordinary, and they've never been seen in the West at all. The interesting thing is that once they were sort of run off, they became scrap paper, just like yesterday's newspaper. And a lot of the ceramics that came out of Japan in the second half of the 19th century arrived in Europe wrapped up in screwed up prints. And they got to, the interesting thing is they got to France and they were unwrapped. And today we're sort of kind of familiar with these, but you've got to try and place yourself in the 19th century. You have seen nothing like this at all. You've got no conception of the way the Japanese looked at life. They had a completely different spatial outlook. They weren't interested in perspective. They've got no sense of perspective at all. This scene here is of a fence with a garden, with a lady behind a screen. But it's quite flat. You don't get any idea of depth because the Japanese never discovered it. And so when these arrived in France, they were passed around the Impressionist painters, and they were absolutely, their minds were blown by these extraordinary designs. And this led on to Impressionism. Well, people don't realize quite how important they are. These are by a man called Toyokuni, who was one of the most prolific makers of prints in the 19th century. Where did you come by this album?
Well, my husband found it in a little antique shop, or it was more a junk shop than an antique shop, in Forest Hill in 1947-48.
Really?
And we paid 25 shillings for it.
A pound or so. I mean, quite extraordinary.
His interest in it was because he was interested in swords. And
oh, right. Well, we've got quite a lot of...
quite a lot of sword play in it.
Yeah.
And that's why.
The interesting thing about a Japanese book is that once you've got to the end, you move it over here,
That's it.
and you turn it over, and then it runs back the other way. So it's on both sides. So you get twice as much for your money. In fact, there is going to be about... Do you know how many there are in here?
Oh, I can't remember now. We did count at one time.
I think there are about 40 in here.
I think that's about it.
So
It's
40
about 20
times
each way.
2 is 80. I mean, the album's going to be worth 20 to 30 pounds per page.
Oh!
We're looking at somewhere around 2,500 to 3,500 pounds.
Really?
25 shillings has worked into 2,500 pounds. Not a bad buy. Thank you very much for bringing it in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fascinating collection of little silver insects. They appeal to you?
Not particularly. I have a slight problem with spiders.
Do you?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's bad news because there are 3
Yeah.
rather massive specimens there, aren't they? Where do you get them from?
They actually belong to my father-in-law, and he kept them in the loft in a box saying silver insects. But I think they originally came from Great Aunt Betty.
They're Chinese, probably Shanghai, but
Okay.
I'm not sure. This is what you normally find, little figures carrying baskets of food, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
These are much less common. We've got a praying mantis. I think, I may be wrong, but this may be a crab.
Yeah, it doesn't quite fit.
It might be a bed bug.
Oh.
I tell you the ones that appeal to me, and that's this guy.
Yeah.
We've got a crayfish, which is actually articulated. Such fun. And this, it's a cicada.
Oh, okay.
And a cicada is a hugely symbolic insect as far as the Chinese are concerned.
Right.
Because the cicada spends, 10 years of its life as a grub underground. And then one day, up it comes. And it comes out of the ground absolutely pristine and is therefore a symbol for rebirth.
Okay.
And the Chinese, when you were buried, would place a jade cicada on your tongue. And it would symbolise that you would be reborn. I think they date from the late 19th century. I think if you saw that in a shop, it would have a price tag of about £60 on it.
Oh, really?
And £80, and £100, £150. Start clocking it up,
Yes.
we're suddenly
That's fun.
maybe £1,000 sitting here on the table.
Oh. Maybe I should take it out and sort of save it to scare my grandchildren.
There are those moments in your life that you will always remember, and I will always remember standing here, but I'll certainly always remember the first time that I saw this spectacular robe. I want to know everything that you know.
Or was brought to the UK by Sarah's grandfather, probably in the early 30s. And he was general manager of the Standard Bank in India
In Calcutta.
and Calcutta.
Calcutta, yes. I think he must have had it as a present.
So, have you always known about it? Where's it been?
It was in the dressing up box.
No. So, did you wear it as a
Yes.
child?
Oh, yes.
So look, 1750, it certainly would be imperial. It's a lady's robe. A robe of 1750 is a very rare robe indeed. I mean, there are a few survivors. The only other ones I know of this type, you'd have to go to Beijing and you'd have to go to the Palace Museum to see one of these. You know, it really is a sort of a museum item. Now, the colour is important, and a bright yellow would be for the Empress or the Dowager Empress or the sort of first-ranking concubine. This isn't a bright yellow. It's got a slightly kind of limey, just a slight green tinge to it. If you put that next to a sort of yellow imperial robe, you would see the difference, but it is certainly imperial. How do we know that? Well, we've got this lovely sort of gilded five-clawed dragon here. We've got these dragons chasing these wonderful kind of flaming pearls and these sort of flame scrolls and the crashing waves at the bottom. So there's a lot going on there. You know, spectacular thing. And then I've just got my little glove here, because you mustn't touch these, because you can, with your little greasy hands, stain the silk. And if I just pull that back, you've just got this wonderful, rich red brocade inside there. And it's just a fabulous thing. And I just keep coming back to the condition. It is extraordinary. However, and there is a however, it does have a little problem. And that is, if you look at the dragon here, it wasn't intended to be sort of two-tone. What's happened there, I suspect, is that when they've mixed the sort of the gilt on the copper wire, that actually the copper has oxidised, you see. And that is going to affect, ultimately, it will affect its value. Another thing I've noted, and I think that at some time somebody's actually sort of turned up the bottom. I think it's probably a little shorter than it should be, because I can see part of the, you know, the fringe here that actually maybe has just been sort of turned up as well. Just flip that around, just so we can just have a look at the back, which is just as rewarding. I mean, it's just spectacular. And that decoration just continues. And that's sort of how we wanted to see, you know, that dragon on the front in that sort of perfect condition. If that comes up at auction, with the way the market is at the moment, I think that would make £200,000.
Oh.
Oh.
That's surprising.
Yes. Yes. Right.
And I wouldn't be surprised if it made a bit more.
Yes.
My goodness me, thank you very much. Well, we won't put it in the dressing up box again. Thank you.
It would be my great uncle used to go to sea. He was an engineer, and he brought them all back. It would be the sailing ships that he would be in before the steam came.
And do you know how long that is?
1900.
1900.
Before 1900.
That will do, because that's more or less spot on the date I put on these if I didn't know the family history. And the thing that strikes me about this group is it's so homogeneous. All of these Satsuma pieces, that's what they are all apparently from the same workshop. In the Far East, dragons are in fact a symbol of fertility, of continuity, and they are generally auspicious animals. They're not supposed to be frightening animals like they are over here, which is why we see them so often referred to in both Chinese and here in Japanese works. I'm going to single out two pieces. This is the first one. This is a wonderful piece, and the dragon modelling on here is really quite superb. The unexpected thing is the way the whole thing then just lifts off the top.
Yes.
It's really quite a clever piece of modelling. They actually put the whole dragon on, they actually stick it onto the piece, and then they have to cut through it in order to make sure that the thing will reassemble in exactly the same position as it was. Well, this immediately gives away the function of this object. You put the smouldering essence or whatever it is in there, and the smoke comes out through here, and with some luck it might also appear to come out through the mouth of the dragon. Now that is therefore a koro, and round the sides we have this wonderful scene of wise men, arhats, reading texts, religious texts on one side, and then typical for Japanese pottery, we have a totally opposed view with samurai fighting it out on the other side. Very nice object. This is the piece that, for me, is perhaps the most unusual. The modeller has actually set himself quite a task in A, producing this very fine dragon, and then B, placing on its back this holy man who is obviously accompanied by the dragon in his good works. He looks a bit emaciated. But he's in good condition, which is surprising because figures of this type are likely to have bits and pieces chipped off or knocked off here and there. So that's really the most unusual of all the pieces. Let's give you some indication of value. The incense burner is around 700 to 1,000, maybe even 1,200 pounds. And the figure on the dragon, well, I would say around 8 to 1,200 pounds. Quite a nice catch for your seafaring great uncle.
Uncle, yes.
Now tell me about this vase.
Well, it was given to my father, I think, many years ago by a patient. He was a GP in Lincolnshire, and I think he was given this just as a gift one time.
A grateful living client.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah. Well, let's tackle date first of all, because the giveaway is miniaturism.
Right.
In Japan, towards the end of the 19th century, all the crafts of Japan seemed to move towards miniaturism. Everything that could be made smaller was made smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And also in the ceramic technology. And so much so that here you have almost an extreme example of how miniaturistic a painter can get. In fact, you could almost say he's wasting his time because you have to be myopic like me or have an incredibly powerful magnifying glass to see some of the details on this.
Yes.
But I think that's possibly the secret. There is a sort of delight in an object where the detail is so fine that it's almost hidden. It's almost like a sort of secret code between you and the person who made it.
All right. Okay.
So when you're looking at it, even at this distance, what you see is a blue vase with a couple of panels and some pretty sort of flowers in between. Well, let's sort of. I'm lucky, of course, being myopic. I don't need magnifying glasses, so I'm going to take off my glasses and I'm going to look really closely. On one side, we've got this sort of market scene At the top of the picture is a fruit and veg stall laid out with melons, long white radishes. And then we move down into the bottom left-hand corner, and we seem to have a little fish stall.
Right.
Tiny, tiny fish. Look, I mean, the way that they are depicted, different colours with a different skin, the way they're lying there, their fins floppy. I mean, it's not just any old fish. That is a dead fish on a bench.
Now,
right. To be able to paint like that using one hair of a brush and probably going blind in the process is breathtaking.
Yes, amazing.
Now, on this side, we have a totally different idea. Here we have a still life with flowers. Actually, inside, amongst the flowers, there's the occasional flounder up here in the corner.
Really?
This pink fish. We've never seen him before. And then on the fan, because that's what this is a fan.
Yeah.
You have another landscape. If anything, this is even finer than the one we saw on the other side.
Right.
You've got a receding distance. You've got figures in paddy fields. You've got figures, I think they are probably harvesting rice. And there is a water wheel. And the sluice is running right in front there. I mean, this is just fantastic. And then right in the foreground, another fish, another prawn. Or is it a lobster? I suspect it's a lobster.
Right.
And some sort of a shellfish. I mean, this is miniaturism gone completely mad.
I hadn't realised all that detail was on it.
Well, there
actually.
you are. I mean, this is a universe on a small piece of pottery.
Good grief.
And it is exceptionally fine. Now, unfortunately, this is not by the finest of all the miniature artists on Satsuma. This is, in fact, from the workshop of a man whose seal appears at the bottom there. It's an impressed mark. It says Kinkozan. Nevertheless, a good maker. He made low-quality goods, he made high-quality goods, and this is probably at the upper scale.
Yeah.
It's still not that magic name of Yabumezan, but it's about as close as it comes to Yabumezan.
Right.
So it didn't cost your father anything.
No.
It doesn't cost you anything.
No.
So you're not at all interested in what it's worth.
I like it a lot. I suppose it would be nice to know how much it's worth, but if you don't want to tell me, fine.
Well, I will tell you.
Good, thank you.
If you sold that in a Japanese works of art sale, in the current climate, I think it would probably fetch somewhere between £1,200 and £1,800.
All right, goodness. That's good. That's good.
Well, this really is a pretty staggering object. Did you have it on display in your house?
No, I didn't. It was too heavy to hang.
It is very heavy, yes, because this wood is enormously heavy. It's Chinese hardwood. Do you know a bit about it?
My grandfather bought it and I inherited it when my father died.
Well, it is a wonderful thing, it really is, and so it should be, because it was actually made to decorate the Imperial Palace in Peking. And series of panels like this do appear. They're quite unusual, and they're always highly decorative, and one tends to think of Chinese art being frightfully restrained and of great taste. Restraint being the sort of key word, but in fact this is going perhaps overboard in decoration, the sort of thing they did in the middle to the late 18th century when this was made. It's just the sheer quality of the carving is pretty staggering, isn't it? It's inlaid in bone and ivory, and the figures and all this rockwork is then stained with colouring, as you can see, blues and browns here. And if you say, look at this figure here, her dress is wonderfully detailed with little florets picked out in green and lower down a beige colour. And if you look also at the decoration here of the trees, that's pretty staggering too. The trunks are made of wood, say for this particular one, which is a prunus tree, and the petals are made of coral. And if you look closely at, say, the stamens of the flowers, they're actually made of little silver pieces of wire. Beautifully detailed. I mean, the whole concept is quite incredible, actually. I mean, all the figures represent the Chinese immortals with numerous attendants. And they are placed in this incredible panorama it's the Taoist heavenly paradise, so-called Shushan, which meant mountain of long life. So you have something here which is quite amazing. And you said your grandfather bought it.
There's two of them. My grandfather bought them. The pair. Yes.
Really? And does the other one look similar?
It's a scene from this pavilion.
So the other one is equally elaborate.
Yes.
And the frames, I think, are wonderfully carved, I must say. Very, very fine quality, which I think does indicate an 18th century date, actually. Well, they are pretty unusual things, obviously, and they're very, very elaborate. And I think you have to think in terms of, say for one on its own, between 10 to 15,000 pounds.
Wow.
So you have a pair, it's going to be something in the order of 20 to 30,000 pounds.
Oh, that's rather nice.
Isn't it? Well, they're marvellous things, and they deserve every penny of it.